Bueno, hace 2 años, si no recuerdo mal, el Estado británico tuvo un referéndum y votó democráticamente salir de la Unión Europea, y eso trajo un estado de nerviosismo y de incertidumbre en todos los ingleses que vivís en España. Y hoy estamos aquí con Sara para que nos explique cuáles son las condiciones de salida de Gran Bretaña de la Unión Europea y que nos explique en qué condición y con qué calidad os vais a quedar en España, y en este caso en Pilar de la Horadada. Bueno, por no alargarme mucho, yo creo que como somos tantos para hablar, cuanto más 2 veces breve, 2 veces bueno. Entonces os paso con Rogelio, que va a traducir lo que poco voy a decir, y a continuación hablará Ignacio Ramos como alcalde de Pilar de la Horadada.
Hello, good morning to everyone. On behalf of Arantxa Martinez, the Councillor for Foreign Citizens of Pilar de Horadadas Council, she would like to welcome all of you to this meeting with British Consul Sarah Jane Morris. As an introduction, our Councillor is stressing that 2 years ago, as you all know, the UK voted on a referendum to go out of the European Union, and that brought a big amount of uncertainty among all British citizens among us. And she would like to introduce the British Consul so she can explain the conditions under which all of you foreign citizens will remain here in Spain.
Buenos días. Good morning. Bien. Muy contento de estar aquí esta mañana con la cónsul británica en nuestro municipio. Es un honor que visite una vez más Pilar de Horadada. Pilar de Horadada es un núcleo importante de ciudadanos ingleses. Para nosotros es un honor tener más de 4.000 personas. 4.000, más de 4.000, es muy importante. Y tenemos que pedir perdón por no tener un espacio más grande con más aforo para todos. Pero es así, pedimos perdón, sorry. Y decir que nuestro ayuntamiento, nuestro pueblo, se siente complacido con todos vosotros. Para nuestro municipio no hay ningún problema con el Brexit, ningún problema. Queremos personas como hasta ahora, personas de calidad, que fomentan el buen ambiente, pacífico, asociacionismo, el medio ambiente, la cultura, el deporte, la normalidad, la tranquilidad. Es eso lo que hoy tenemos en Pinar de Campoverde, Torre de la Horadada, Mil Palmeras, y queremos que sea así y que siga así si ustedes lo deciden. Nuestro pueblo tiene garantizado el servicio de educación, de sanidad. Para eso hoy están aquí representantes del Hospital de Torrevieja, para dar información del Hospital de Torrevieja. Queremos garantizar esos servicios a todos los ciudadanos. La educación es lo primero, la sanidad, el transporte también es importante, pero sobre todo fomentar valores positivos, humanos. Y es eso lo que pretendemos, que Pilar de la Horadada sea un pueblo integrador, donde el teatro, todas las actividades se puedan desarrollar y ser felices. Por eso hay una cuestión que es el Brexit, hay que informarse, hay que oír y luego decidir libremente. Pero yo les digo, sea cual sea la decisión, nuestro municipio agradecerá y seguirá sirviendo todos los servicios que tiene a vuestra disposición. Gracias por venir y pasamos la información a continuación a la cónsul británica, primero traducción e intérprete.
On behalf of our Mayor, Ignacio Ramos, welcome everyone and welcome to the British Consul, Sarah Jane Morris. It's an honor to have all of you here. As you know, here in Pilar we have over 4,000 British citizens. And first of all, the Mayor would like to apologize for the size of this room. We would like to have a bigger room, but for now it's not possible. Our town is very, very pleased with having all of you here. And the Mayor would like to stress that Brexit is not a problem here in Pilar de Horadada. Here we have a lot of people who are making our town happier, bigger, and here, the Mayor would like everyone to feel at ease here among us. Associations are very important, and what British citizens are bringing to our town is normality, tranquility, love for the environment. In Pinar de Campo Verde, Torre de la Horadada, and Mil Palmeras, and here in Pilar as well. And you are bringing a human touch to all of us. The Mayor would like to say that the services, health, education, are guaranteed here in Pilar. Transport as well, and for that we have also staff from Torrevieja Hospital to explain all queries or questions you may have. And the Mayor stresses that here you are a very important part of our town and you boost human values, and it's important to get informed about Brexit and to listen to what's to know. But whatever happens, whatever the decisions may be, integration is guaranteed here and services are guaranteed, and we would like all of you to be happy here among us. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everybody. I wonder if the people over here, if you want to come in, if you don't mind sitting on the floor, maybe you can come along. No, obviously not. Stand on the side there. There's quite a lot of people there. There's a few volunteers, but maybe you can come along the sides here and over that end as well if you want to come through. I'm just having a bit of a whip round for chairs at the moment. Okay, so my name's Sarah Jane Morris. I'm the British Consul. I'm based in Madrid, but part of my consular patch is Valencia, and the Alicante province is obviously one of the busiest bits of my job. The advantage of being based in Madrid, but also having Alicante province in my consular patch, means that when I come and meet the British communities on the Costas, I can then go back to Madrid and speak to my colleagues there, including the ambassador, about the reality of the world you live in on the Costas and the concerns that you have around Brexit, and they then get fed back to London. Since the referendum, that's something that I've been doing a lot of, which is listening to your concerns and making sure that those are basically making their way through to the people that are discussing with Brussels around the exit agreement and particularly citizens' rights. Every time they agree on things, I then go through it with a fine-tooth comb and check which bits are the bits that you are concerned about that haven't been addressed and which bits have. For those of you who have been following it closely, the negotiations, you'll see that there was a withdrawal agreement which was agreed in December. It's an accord, it's not an agreement. Nothing's agreed, so everything's agreed. Had to get that in there. So essentially what it means is that if all things continue as they are, that is the situation that basically will be agreed for citizens' rights. There are bits that have not been agreed yet, but the bits that have been agreed are the bits that I think that you're mainly concerned around, which is residency rights, healthcare, pensions, and I think those are the main ones. There are some things which have still not been agreed that I know people are still concerned about. One is voting rights, and there's two bits to that. One is the right to vote in the UK after you've left for more than 15 years, and the other one is the right to vote in local elections here. And the other one is around free movement, essentially what we call being landlocked. So I'll deal with the bits that we've not agreed with first, because then we can concentrate on the good news, okay? So essentially, voting rights. As you know, if you've been living outside the UK for more than 15 years, you can't vote in UK elections. There is a private members' bill going through at the moment where that's being discussed, and the British government is still committed to bringing back votes for life for Brits that live abroad. So that is that bit, and so it's a question of watch this space with that one. In terms of voting in local elections, that will be a bilateral discussion, probably between the UK and Spain, and it will probably depend on some kind of reciprocal arrangement where it'll be about Spaniards voting in local elections in the UK, and obviously vice versa. We know that's really important for you because you form a very important part of the civil society of the communities that you're living in, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today with the Town Hall, because I know that they work really hard to make sure that you are integrated into the communities that you're living in and to extend their services to all of you, and it's an absolute pleasure to see so many people here today as a result of that kind of effort on their part as well. So if we can ensure that your right to vote in local elections continues, obviously that's really important. Okay, and the other bit was around that we call landlocked, which is essentially, at the moment, the way the negotiations have gone, the UK would like Brits who are living in other parts of Europe to continue to enjoy their free movement rights. So essentially, if you have the right to live in Spain after we leave the EU, you can extend that to other parts of the European Union. So if you decide to move to France, not that I can imagine you would do if you're so happy here in Spain, but should you decide to move to France, you could do so, and you basically could transfer your European rights across. That has not been agreed yet, so we'll have to see what happens there. So worst case scenario would be that you'll have to stay in Spain or go back to the UK. That's worst case scenario, but that's not what the UK wants, okay? That's still to be discussed. Now, what has been agreed? What has been agreed is around residency rights, and everything I'm going to talk about is what we call about everybody who is within the withdrawal agreement. So essentially, everybody who has been living in Spain, let's talk about Spain now because it makes it easier to just concentrate on your lives. If you've been living in Spain before we exit the EU, then essentially what will happen is that when we exit, you will be considered to be part of the withdrawal agreement. You'll be within the withdrawal agreement, okay? What we don't know yet is what's going to happen to people who decide to move to Spain after we leave the EU. Now, in terms of dates, we don't know the exact date yet. As you've probably heard, there's going to be a transition period. But what we definitely do know is that the official date for leaving the EU is March 2019. It may well be that anybody who moves here after that date, for about 2 years after that date, may or may not fall within the withdrawal agreement. That bit I don't know, okay? But what we do know is everybody who's already here and is here before March of next year will be classed as being within the withdrawal agreement. Now, the important thing, though, is that you could demonstrate that you've been here before we exit. So essentially, I have a call to action today. If you're not on the Padron and you don't have your residency papers in order, then I suggest you get down to it, okay? I know there's a lot of people that haven't quite decided which country they live in. They're checking it out and have been checking it out for decades. Now's the time to make a decision. I get a lot of people coming to me and saying, yeah, but I don't really know. Well, you know, sorry, but we're now at a stage where you need to make a decision, and if you don't want Spain to be your home after we leave the EU, then you need to be on the Padron and you need to be a resident in Spain. Now, you can be, you don't have to be a permanent resident, as you probably know. When you first register as resident here, you're resident for 5 years, and then you move across to becoming permanently resident. Everybody who will fall within the withdrawal agreement will be anybody who's resident in Spain at the date that we exit. So you may have only been here a few months, okay? So don't worry if you're thinking, oh yeah, but I won't get my 5 years in, because you don't need to get your 5 years in, okay? You just need to be resident here, okay? So if you're having trouble getting on the Padron, then the right people are here to sort you out, and don't let them leave the room until they have, okay? And this is really important because this is why when we come and visit the British communities on the Costas, we always try and do it with the local town hall, because we know that we're all basically in this together. It's in both our interests that you are registered with your town hall and that you have your residency papers in order. That's important for them because the funding they get from the state government is per capita of people they have on the Padron. So if they have people here who are living here all year round and enjoying services but are not on the Padron, then they won't get the funding that they need. That's for your roads, for all the infrastructure basically that you enjoy in living in a town. So it's in their interest that you're registered. It's in our interest because Spain, from one point of view, although it's heavily bureaucratic, is actually quite a straightforward country in the sense that if you can jump through all the paper hoops, then essentially you know if you're resident in Spain, because you can go along to your Padron and say, am I on the Padron? And they'll whip out a certificate and there it is. And it'll say how long you've been living here. And if you go along to the National Police and say, what's my residency status, again, they'll ask for your NIE and they'll whip out a report and go, yeah, you've been resident here since this date, okay? So, although Spain might feel quite alienating in terms of bureaucracy, actually, once you've got through all the hoops, it's pretty straightforward, okay? So again, if you haven't got your paperwork sorted out, get it sorted out. If you don't feel that you've got the language skills to do it on your own, then use a gestor or find someone who's already done it and get them to give you a hand. But definitely get yourself sorted out, get yourself above board before we leave, because after that date it's going to be more complicated. I don't know how it will be, but it will definitely be more complicated than it is now. Right, the other parts of the withdrawal agreement which have also been agreed so far is access to healthcare. And I know this is a concern to a lot of people that are living here. Spain is a contribution-based healthcare welfare state. The UK is a residency-based. So in the UK, if you're resident, you can access services. In Spain, you need to contribute. So in terms of healthcare, if you're of working age, then you'll be paying into the social security system, and then Spain will be providing your healthcare through that. Okay, so British national working here in Spain, pays social security, gets healthcare. If you're a retiree, then the Department of Health will be paying your healthcare because your pension is paid by the UK. So the UK is the competent authority to pay for your healthcare in Spain. And what the UK does is, the Department of Health every year sits down with the Spanish health service. They basically, the UK would say, right, we've got X number of British nationals, well, not British nationals, it could be other nationals, but who are UK pensioners. We've got X number of UK pensioners living in Spain, and these people, therefore, we are transferring X amount of money across. Okay, that's the way the public healthcare system works. And in terms of the EHIC, your EHIC card is supplied by the country that provides your healthcare. So if you're a pensioner, UK pensioner, the UK provides your EHIC card, and if you're basically paying the Spanish system, then Spain provides your EHIC card. And what happens is with your EHIC card is if you are ill abroad, then the actuals of the cost of your healthcare are charged back to the country that provides the card. I'm explaining this because it's the reciprocal healthcare arrangement which currently exists in Europe. The UK wants to continue with it, and it's probably it's definitely nobody's interest to do so because no country is out of pocket. Okay. Because there are lots of Europeans that go on holiday to the UK and they use their EHIC cards. So basically the aspiration or the agreement so far is that the healthcare arrangements that are currently in place will continue. Okay? So from my understanding so far is that from a healthcare point of view, all the people who fall within this withdrawal agreement will continue to have the same healthcare rights that they have at the moment. Okay? Pensions. Now, this was something that people were concerned about. A lot of people were concerned about their pensions being frozen after we left the European Union, because that's what happens if you move to Australia or Canada or anywhere outside of the EU. And this was one of the concerns that we fed back very early on to into the UK, to the DEXEU, which is the Department for Equity in the European Union, who are the people who are responsible for developing the policy around Brexit. What the government has committed is that for the Brits who live in other parts of Europe, again those who fall within the withdrawal agreement, that their pensions will be uprated in the same way they will for UK pensioners living in the UK. Okay. Now this is a release to a lot of you. I know you've been hit hard by the exchange rate, and so the last thing you want is that for your pensions to be frozen as well. What I don't know is for those who do not fall within this withdrawal agreement, so those who move here afterwards, whether they will continue to enjoy that uplift as well. It's quite possible they won't. I don't know. All I do know is that I think the reason that it was been included in this is precisely because of the concerns of the Brits on the costas. Because there's a lot of you, and I think it was something that, again, I think that the UK government wanted to honour the commitment that you moved to, for this, in this case, Spain, making an informed choice based on the information you had at the time about what the cost of your lifestyle were going to be, and that to change the goalposts would have been unfair. Okay, this is why I don't know whether it will continue to be for Brits that move here after we have exited the EU. So that's that bit. On residency, as I said, if you're inside the withdrawal agreement, then you can continue to live in Spain indefinitely. And again, what we don't know is whether the Brits who move here after we've left, whether they will have to demonstrate a certain income, or I don't know. All that's been agreed so far are the citizens' rights for those citizens already living in another European country. Okay. So you all here, hopefully, if you're all permanently resident here, will fall within the withdrawal agreement, on the assumption, of course, that you're on the pad you're on and you've got your residency papers, that you're on radar. If you've decided consciously to be off radar, which may be for a number of reasons, and everybody knows somebody who is, well, if you are, or you know someone who is, then I suggest you get yourself on radar, okay? Because it's going to be complicated if not, and now is the time to get yourself registered, okay? So I think I'll leave it there for now, because I do like the questions and answers bit at the back, at the end of the session is really important, and it's because that's when we get to kind of understand a bit more about the nuances of the bits of Brexit that people are most concerned about. But essentially I've got two calls of action for you today. One is get yourself registered, get yourself above board, and the second one is go to the original source for information. Okay? It's a very unsettling time. Some people quite enjoy reading all the ins and outs and of the negotiations and all the politicians and who says what and what it means and reading into it. Other people prefer not to know. Either way, if it's not on, and you can't see at the moment, but there's a gov.uk website, which is the British government website. If you go to the gov.uk website and you put into the search engine, you put in Brexit, up will come the section which is DEXEU, Department for Equity in the European Union, where all the information about the what's been agreed so far is kept. Okay, so you can go in there and you can read in slow time what I've explained to you today. You can also put in there living in Spain, and up come another bit, which is essentially what your rights and obligations are at the moment before we leave the EU, and in there you can click on things like healthcare, driving licenses, pet passports, tax, etc, etc. Okay, that is the original source of information. If it's not there, or you've heard something different, then what you've heard is not true. Okay. And if you still don't believe me, then you can write to our Facebook page, which is Brits in Spain. You can actually put something in there and we will get back to you and confirm or deny whatever you've picked up. But please don't get unsettled by the rumour mill, because I know that it's very unsettling for a lot of people, and as I said, you made an informed choice when you moved to Spain. The goalposts have not been moved for you. Something in the background is happening called Brexit, but the aim is, in terms of citizens' rights, is that your lives are largely unchanged, okay? And that's important that you take that bit away, okay? So I'm going to stop there because I know that Richard would like to speak, and I'll take some questions and answers at the end. And like I say, if you're having trouble registering, Don't leave this room and don't let them leave this room until you're registered. ¿Me habéis entendido, no? Okay. Sí, 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 sí. Okay, thank you.
Más o menos.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Richard Hill. I am the Valencia regional rep for Brexpats in Spain. Brexpats in Spain is one of the only fully registered associations dealing with the Brexit in Spain. We link with a number of other organisations right across Europe. I won't go through the list, there's quite a few of them, but one that I'm sure that you will have heard of is Brexpats Hear Our Voice, which is in the current news, with reference to the European Citizenship Challenge. I'm not going to go into that today unless anybody wants me to, but all the groups are working together. We have over now 4,500 members in Spain, and I urge you to join us because the numbers count. The more people we have, the better our voice. It's free. You sign up on Facebook, Brexpats in Spain. It is a numbers game. I'd like to say that everything that Sarah Jane, the Consul, has said, we actually agree with. We fully support the Consulate and we are grateful for their support for us. And I'd also like to add that the Alicante region is probably one of the best supporting consulates in Spain. It's excellent. The attempts to keep people informed are superb. We take the information that they give us, we look at it, we don't necessarily agree with all of it, said calmly. We have it's become a point of amusement almost. We don't necessarily agree on this term agreement because it isn't. We insist it's an accord because if something goes wrong, it's gone. Now I don't want to be scaremongering, but we need to understand everything is in a state of flux. And while it is accepted that that's the way they would like to see things go forward, if any element of it doesn't work, then that agreement will cease, will stop. I think, to end on a positive note, that it's not in anybody's interest for it to go wrong. I think that at the end of the day, at the last minute probably, there will be total agreement and the boat won't be rocked. That's what I think. In the meantime, we just need to keep calm, listen, support each other, get the support from the consulate and work together. And that is the key. Thank you very much.
I think we'll take some questions and answers now. Do you have any questions? Yes.
Very briefly, at the moment, does it look as though the double taxation rule will continue?
Okay, so for those who didn't hear the question, it was about the double taxation rule. Firstly, just to clarify, although it's called the double taxation rule, it's quite an unfortunate term. You don't pay tax twice. You do two tax declarations, but you only pay on one set of assets. The double taxation agreement, it doesn't sit within the EU competency. Essentially, that's a bilateral agreement between Spain and the UK, and it doesn't look like it's going to change for now. Okay, and for those of you who aren't that familiar with it, essentially, if you've got assets of more than €50,000 in the UK, you should do a tax declaration here in Spain. It's quite complicated. I would suggest that you ask a gestor to give you a hand. They won't charge you that much money, really, to be honest, and it's cheaper than paying the fine. You know, like I said, I know that a lot of people did come off the padron at one stage a few years ago and say, well, I'm not going to do my tax declaration straight. You know. Sometimes you're actually cutting off your nose to spite your face, to be honest, because the padron statistics don't go through to what they call Hacienda here, but Hacienda do have a very nice long chat with HMRC every year. So to be honest, I wouldn't not be on the Padron because you don't want to do a tax declaration, okay? But yeah, I think it's going to continue for now, okay? Well, we'll do this lady at the end afterwards. Okay.
Good morning. Accepting the fact that all that's been said, that these agreements aren't necessarily complete agreements yet, should they become agreements? I haven't seen any discussion about any future problems we may experience as residents in other European countries other than our own. No system of resolving issues that might crop up in the future. How would we resolve our issues? You know, we don't have, as things stand, we don't have an MP in England if you've been here more than 15 years. You won't be able to have an European MP. If we have an issue, how would we resolve it? And is that on the table for talks?
Okay, so I've been thinking about things like the European Court of Justice, etc., etc. That has still not been agreed, but essentially, if you're within the withdrawal agreement, and as you know, until we leave, you are still a European, your rights and obligations remain the same until the day we leave. After the day we leave, if you're within the withdrawal agreement, you will be a resident here in Spain, and you will have rights as a resident here in Spain, in the same way that other non-EU nationals living in Spain also have rights here in Spain, okay? So I can't answer your question in terms of the European Court of Justice because that hasn't been agreed yet. But I would just hold the thought that essentially the rights that you have currently attained that will be within the withdrawal agreement will be respected. Yeah? I'm not answering your question, I know, but I'm answering it as best I can.
Is it up for discussion?
Yes, it is up for discussion, yes. Yeah. I mean, if you've been following it, you'll see that the UK want a kind of parallel thing, which is quite similar to, but not quite the same as. Which kind of sums everything up, really, doesn't it? The lady at the back had a question. Yeah.
Good morning. I have a query. A friend suggested that those of us who have been registered for 12 years over here can apply for another status, which then they then have the same status as people who have worked here and are pensioners, and therefore become eligible to all that Spanish pensioners are entitled to. Can you clarify that for me?
It doesn't sound familiar to me. I mean, essentially, as I said, Spain is a contribution-based system. If you've paid into the Spain system, you will take out of the Spanish system, and essentially, if you've paid into the UK in terms of social security, your pension will come from the UK. Yeah. If you've paid a bit there and a bit here, then it's aggregated. Yeah. But essentially, that sounds a bit. No, I don't really. Doesn't sound familiar, but Ignacio is a lawyer, so I'll get the lawyer to give you chapter and verse.
Hello, good morning. Just to clarify here, probably what you heard is about being more than 10 years, and that's the only condition to apply for nationality. If that's the case, then you will have the same right as Spanish and a European member, obviously. Otherwise, you go back to your nationality, which is British, and depending on the agreement, you will have that kind of residency permit, which is all about. But it's about about the pensions. It doesn't really affect being national or not national. So basically, depending on contribution.
Just on nationality, sometimes people do ask me about Spanish nationality. The UK recognises dual citizenship, so if you're a British national and you take out Spanish nationality, as far as the Brits are concerned, you're still British. And if you don't want to be British, you have to renounce your British citizenship, and you'd know it if you did it because it costs money. You have to apply for Home Office to do it. you would do that if you applied for a nationality in a country where they ask for evidence of having renounced your nationality. In the case of Spain, they don't recognise dual nationality, but they don't ask you to have renounced your other nationality, and they don't ask for evidence. So if you take out Spanish nationality, which if you're either married to a Spaniard or you've been living here for over 10 years, you would be entitled to do. And then when you actually took out the Spanish nationality, they would ask you to renounce your British nationality. Now, we've asked in Madrid, and it's one of the advantages of me being based in Madrid, is that we've been and knocked on some doors of the Spanish authorities and said, you know, what do you mean by this, renounce? And essentially what they say is, no, what we're saying is, when you take out Spanish nationality, we will not, in Spain, recognise you as a British national. Okay? So that means that if you are arrested in Spain and you've taken out Spanish nationality, don't say, please call the British consulate because I'm a British national, because I go, nah. No. You're in Spain, you're in the country of the laws of your nationality, therefore, as far as we're concerned, you're Spanish. The only time that we would get involved would be if the country of your other nationality was a country that did certain things that we didn't agree with. So, for example, if a British citizen in the US also had US nationality, and they were on death row, then we would provide them with consular assistance because we don't agree with the death penalty. Okay? As that's not the case in Spain, essentially what I'm saying is if you decide to take out Spanish nationality, whilst you're in Spain you're Spanish, but you're still British as far as the British are concerned. But don't call us for consular assistance if you're in prison, because we won't come and see you. Sorry. Hope that clarified nationality though.
Hello, I wonder if you might help. I'm lucky enough to have a house in France and Spain and England, and I travel at the moment at will between all three countries. I'm concerned that after the exit I might not be able to do that, and will there be visa requirements for that? Thank you.
Well, they haven't agreed yet on what the future arrangements are going to be, but I think this is something that Rich and I definitely agree on, is that where future arrangements haven't yet been agreed, we fall on logic. And logic would suggest that no, there won't be visa arrangements because the relationship between European countries and the UK is so extensive now. So, for example, there's about 1 million Brits who own homes in Spain, but there's only about 280,000 Brits on the Padron. Okay, so even if you double that number and suggest that 500,000 Brits are living here all year round, or most of the year, that's still a lot of people with second homes here. Now, it's in the interest of Spain that the people who've got second homes here continue to come, stay in them as often as they like, and spend as much money as they can in the bars, the restaurants, the supermarkets, etc. And I'm sure that will continue. Yeah? In the same way that before Spain entered the EU, which was in 1984, a lot of Brits had already made Spain their home, definitely bought second homes here, and Benidorm was booming back in the 50s and 60s, way before Spain joined the EU. So, I don't know is the answer, but I think it's highly unlikely, and I think you will just carry on doing as you are now. That's what logic tells me, yeah? Yeah.
This is actually one of the things that Brexpats in Spain is campaigning strongly about, because the freedom of movement in the future is going to be important to many people. We're actively campaigning with this, both with the EU, with the British government, and Guy Verhofstadt, is that Guy Verhofstadt? Yeah, Guy Verhofstadt is supporting us in this, as is Brexit Hear Our Voice, which is campaigning for citizens' rights to continue. So I agree with Sarah Jane. Logic says there's not going to be a problem, but we're trying to cross the T on this one. Thank you.
Good morning. As an older gentleman, I do have a question about the wills that we write in Spain. I currently have a clause in my will that says I want my will to be handled under British law, because we at the moment have full disposition of our money, as opposed to the Italian, the Italian? Where did that come from? The Spanish system. Will that continue? Will I still have the right to leave my money to who I wish, or will the microphone be repaired at any time?
That's a good one. Good morning. Yes, your question is important, but is about international law, nothing to do with the EU. Okay. If any of you have a will here from 2015, you should make a decision, because you're resident in Spain, whether you want to use your national law, which in your case is British, or the Spanish law. That's a very, very important decision for all of you to make, because it doesn't work the same way for inheritance. Being Spanish, we've got the right or the obligation to leave 2/3 to the children, and you've got free disposal. So the answer to it, in case of a Brexit, there is no change at all, because Spain signed that agreement, and as long as you're resident in Spain, that's still valid. Okay, so the applicable law will be the British law, as long as you say. Okay, but it's very important for all of you to mention the will, otherwise it will be Spanish. Okay?
There is one thing I'd like to add on this. One thing that Brexpats in Spain does, we appreciate that there are other issues than just leaving Europe. The issues are going to be financial and legal as well, because the statuses may well change. To that end, we are not just Brexpats in Spain. We work with other trusted people. Ignacio is our legal advisor. Sam, can you just stand up? Sam works for Chorus, and they're our financial advisors. We trust them. If you want to ask any questions on finance or legal, they're your people to talk to.
Hi, good morning. After Britain leaves in 2019, there was talk about changing the passports back to blue ones. Now what happens, I mean, like me and I imagine a few other people here, we've just renewed ours about a year ago. Do we have to change ours and pay all again to get the blue passport, or can we just use it till it runs out and then change it?
Okay, it hasn't been decided yet, but I would assume that they will get phased in, the new passports, in the same way that European passports got phased in. Some people had blue ones, whilst other people had the ones with European written on them. And just to clarify, even though it says European on it, your nationality, your citizenship is British. Yeah. So essentially, what will happen is the bit that says European on it on your passport just will be, meaningless after we exit, but it doesn't actually carry any rights on the passport as such. Okay, because at the moment your passport, if you take out a visa to go to another country, the visa is based on your nationality. It's not based on your Europeanness. Yeah. Okay. So essentially, one would assume they'll get phased in. Yeah, because I can't imagine the UK will be wanting to issue a whole bunch of, 60 million passports on everything else?
Hi, you talked about the patron. Do you know if once you're registered on it, you have to renew it at any time?
Okay.
The patron is to be confirmed every 5 years in the case of permanent residents. In the case of non-permanent residents, every 2 years. You receive a reminder, we send a reminder from the town hall, so you know that you have to renew it, to confirm that you're still here.
Hello, good morning. While on that, can they tell me about residencia? Do we have to renew that? We took ours out about 14 years ago, and it's the paper one, do we have to renew that?
No, you don't. But I think for all of you who are here, it wouldn't hurt to go down to the police station and just check what status you've got. You'll probably be absolutely fine, but it's just that sometimes people have thought they were resident and then found that actually they weren't. And I'm not suggesting that's your case at all. It's just that on the consular side, we get consular cases of people who've become elderly and infirm, who've been living here a very long period of time, and have actually been living here for maybe 20 years. And they thought they were resident, they thought they'd registered, and then it apparently appears they hadn't. So, like I say, especially with the run-up to us exiting the EU, I would suggest that for peace of mind, go along with your NIE number and say, you know, what does it say? Because they'll have a big database and they'll just print it off and go, yeah, you're a permanent resident. You go, thank you very much. This one, it'll give you peace of mind, yeah? Okay. I want to let the hospital say a few words because they've come specially to see you and speak to you all today about access to healthcare. This is the public hospital in Torrevieja. Okay.
Hello, good morning. My name is Abraham. I'm from the Torrevieja Hospital. Close to me is Paco. Paco is the person that used to be in the town hall of Pilar, helping you, mostly of you know. And basically, I just want to let you know that the hospital since October 2009 is helping the community of here, of Pilar, dealing with the papers with the Social Security Office. So basically what we do is to help you with the form S1, the European medical cards, on the way to get the free healthcare or the coverage that you need in Spain during your instance, right? We are here in Pilar every day, 8 till 2. Paco is here every day, so if you have any query, you can come and talk to him, and he's going to explain you the way, because as you know, every person has a different situation, and we can help you in the best way to get your free healthcare and to sort it out every question that you could have regarding your prescriptions, the coverage, the percentage that you have to pay, or the ways to get the free healthcare. So basically I want to introduce you this, and if you have any question regarding the hospital or medical arrangements, you can do it now if you want. Oh.
I'm lucky
I'm lucky enough to be in receipt of both a UK pension and a Spanish pension. Should the Accord agreement not come to pass, would I, because of my Spanish pension, and therefore my husband, still be covered by the Spanish National Health?
Well, actually, the medical coverage as a pensioner from your country, you are getting through on form S1, right? But also, as you say, you can receive a pension from Spain if you have contributed in this country. So for the moment, this is the way we are, and this is the way that at the moment is going to continue. So you can get both pensions.
Yes.
Basically, your question was about whether you will be entitled to have your pension. Is that correct?
No.
Healthcare. Yes, if you did contribute into the system, automatically you will get the...
So even if Brexit negotiations Accord do not go forward, because I'm a Spanish pensioner,
Correct.
I will continue under Spanish to collect it.
Correct, as that benefit. That's correct. Thanks.
But I think just for everybody else who's a UK pensioner here in terms of access to healthcare, you would have heard that the Valencian Regional Government President Chimo Puig actually said that Brits, basically after the EU, will continue to have access to healthcare in his region. And that's certainly a commitment that we've heard across the board in Spain, in the sense that if you look at the numbers, it's not in the interest of Spain for the Brits to be without access to healthcare. And as I said, because it's a reciprocal arrangement, I also don't think that the UK will be that happy about hundreds of thousands of Brits going back to the UK who are all pensionable age. Like I say, if you look at logic would tell you that it's a win-win situation at the moment. The Brits retiring in Spain, the Department of Health paying their healthcare and Spain enjoying their presence here. So I wouldn't be concerned about healthcare at all, because the current setup could easily carry forward as a bilateral, even if it wasn't as a European arrangement. Okay.
Can I just say that a lot of the things that you talked about are relevant to the Alicante region, Valencia region. There are a lot of people here today that I know are from the Murcia region, and things are slightly different in the Murcia region. And you know, things like the padron, for instance. I know that in San Pedro Pinatar, for instance, you cannot sign on the padron unless you are a resident. They will not allow you to sign on. And that's not hearsay, that is actual fact.
No, you're absolutely right. Last week I was down in Murcia. I met with the regional president and I met with the delegado gobierno, and the regional president also expressed his commitment in terms of healthcare and the Brits staying in the Murcian region. You're right in the sense that basically in Spain you have a central government law, which is then interpreted at a regional level, and which is then interpreted at a provincial level, and then at a local level. And this is why we go to all these different towns, because you're absolutely right, is that every time someone asks a question around the padron, the council will have a different system in place. And that's why it's really important that we have these meetings actually with the council here as well. Because if you are having trouble, it's often specific to a specific town. We know, for example, that in Orihuela, and I think my good friend is here again, yes, Orihuela, they have trouble getting on the padron as well, and it's really important that we go back there and we speak to the council. Sometimes it's around gatekeeping, about local interpretation, and sometimes it's chicken and egg, which is they won't let you get on the padron until you've got residency, and you can't get that until you've got healthcare, and it goes around in a circle. You know, I said, if you are having trouble, that's why I say, if you're having trouble, stay behind, we'll pin everyone down, try and get it sorted out. And if you are from a town that's not, that we haven't been to yet, or you think we need to go to, or you want us to go and speak to them, then just let us know. You know, we will go, yeah? And we will drop them a line, because in most of the times it's just things get lost in translation. It's not because people are trying to be difficult, because, as I said, it's in the council's interest as well that they have as many people on the padron as possible, because that's how they get their funding. I think it's just because things get lost in translation and, you know, things get complicated. So like I say, if you're from a town where you're having trouble, then do let us know and we'll try and help you sort it out, yeah?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Yes.
I have a question. It involves nationality and the education system. It's possibly not relevant to everyone, but I'd like to ask it anyway. I have a daughter who has been through the Spanish education system. She's now doing a master. She's come from primary. She came here at 7 years old. She's totally Spanish, really. She's currently doing a master's, as I say, and she's been informed by teachers at the university that on completion of her master's, unless she is Spanish, she will not be able to apply for work within any civil service department of Spain. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, so can you put any light on that subject at all?
Yeah, it could be a requirement to have Spanish nationality. It probably isn't related to Brexit. It's probably just to do with Spanish nationality, to be in the Spanish civil service. I mean, one thing is recognition of qualifications. That's something that Brexit has not been agreed yet. If you look at the, again, if you go onto the government website and you look at the Citizens' Rights Agreement so far, what you'll see is that it says that essentially if you attained a qualification before we exited, that qualification will be recognised. What has not been agreed yet is if you attain a qualification after we exit, whether they will be mutually recognised. I think it's highly likely they will be, because if they were recognised before, why would you stop recognising them afterwards? But then I suppose in 10 years' time, if qualifications change, if training systems change, they might go in different directions, the UK from the EU. But for now, qualification is one thing, and the other thing is about access to certain jobs based on nationality, yeah? And that is probably more to do with that than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, she's found a problem as well in respect of getting becas with some of the Spanish companies. They won't give it to anyone who isn't actually Spanish.
Yeah, well, Yeah, it's nationality.
One final point.
Yeah.
If you apply for nationalisation, do you need to give up your passport?
No, you don't. If you read your passport, it actually says that it's property of the British government. I did complain to me once that they went along to take out their Spanish nationality, and they gave their passport to the Spanish authorities and said, you know, you'll be wanting this, or what do I do with this? And they cut the end off it. And I said, well, you know, don't give your passport to anybody else. It's yours. And no, you don't have to hand it in. No. Okay.
Good morning. I would like to make an inquiry in regards with education as well. I have a daughter who is completing her A-levels next year in September. She's also a UK national. So I was wondering if she still have access to a uni loan back in the UK if she wanted to go back to, continue to do a university in the UK.
Okay, you'll have seen this, and for the 1819 entry date, that things will not have changed, but you're right that for 1920 it may have changed, and it may well be that as a non-European she will not be able to access a UK student loan. That will be for the fees though, because the fees, because if it's for the living costs, you need to be living in the UK for 3 years before then anyway, so it would only be for the fees, yeah? What I don't know is whether the transition agreement will continue to apply. The rights will carry over for a couple more years after that. You'll need to keep a close eye on the DexEU pages of gov.uk to find out when that's agreed, yeah? But essentially, yeah, as a European national, what hasn't been agreed yet is basically what the cost of university fees will be for British nationals or any, wanting to go to study in the UK after we've exited. But I say there's this grey period, which is essentially after March 2019 and this transition period. And what's not clear to me yet is exactly what bits will carry on during that time. We'll still be paying into the EU and therefore taking out, but I don't know about things like education and loans, what will that will mean, I'm afraid. You just need to keep an eye on the website, yeah? But in terms of entry requirements and qualifications, if you look at UK websites for universities, they have, it doesn't matter where you study in the world, that they've transferred it across to UCAS points anyway. So the Spanish, even if she's done, it sounds like she's done A-levels, but even if she's done the baccalaureate, there's a lot of Spaniards studying in the UK, and I'm sure that'll continue in the future.
Hi, good morning. Just going on the education, for obviously I know this doesn't apply to, again, everyone, but me myself being a younger expat, decided to come over here and work. I've currently just had a daughter. Now she's going to be entering into the phase where she's being, obviously I've got her a British passport, but then I'm going to have the same problems in terms of education and coming up and where she goes into the system. And then should I possibly decide to have another child, then will they be classed as being born in Spain? Will they then have the same access to the British passport? Will the complications be of obtaining that and possibly them wanting to go back?
Okay, with a British mother, they can have a British passport anyway. You can apply for a British passport for them, yeah? Okay, so that's one part. In terms of education, you'll probably have noticed that the education system here in Spain, there's a lot of British schools here that do the A-level system, and a lot of Spanish children go through those. Actually, in some places, like I think the one in Alicante, there's more Russians there than there are Brits in that school. So essentially, the British education system here is actually producing a lot of non-UK nationals that are coming through it and coming out the other end. And as I said, the entry requirements into the UK university system are transferred from, they just transfer across whatever you've studied in 2 points for UK system. So you don't need to go through the A-level system in order to go to a UK university, yeah? So it's entirely your choice which system you put your child through, but even if you put them through the Spanish system, they can still go to UK universities. And there's a lot of water go through the underage before then, but the UK university system is one that's really really aims to have international students at all levels, and I think that'll continue. Yeah, I don't know if that's answered your question. Not really.
More or less. Probably have to see later on the time. But also another point, because With most of the individuals here, they're probably asking for themselves and how their residency then apply for their healthcare. And as the other woman stated, for different regions it means different things. For example, in terms of residency renewal and the padron, for example, in Murcia, it does have a set date, it's every 10 years, and all those things different apply. When it comes to my daughter, example, she's on the healthcare system because she's assigned to me because I'm currently working. Well, obviously, will that continue? Because are they basing it on just a set individual, or will it also continue as their family? Because as I say, if I hadn't been working, for example, my daughter wouldn't have access to Spanish healthcare.
Well, she's dependent on you, and if you weren't working, you would probably be sin recursos, and so you would be able to access the healthcare system. Basically, you'd be equivalent of on benefits, even if the benefits weren't as, you weren't receiving any benefits as such, but essentially if you're not earning, you're what they call sin recursos, and you can access the public healthcare system through that.
As I say, that again would apply to me, but
and your
in
dependents.
Murcia, she wouldn't be allowed to be assigned onto me with that. There'd be a lot of
no, she's a dependent of you. She's
so
your
she
dependent.
Wouldn't be allowed to be on that.
Your spouse and your children are dependents of you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just say that my daughter is dependent on me? She's on my
medical cover, but she can't get treatment in Murcia because she's registered with me in Pilar. To do that, she would have to change her medical cover over to Murcia. To do that, she has to have an address of residency in Murcia.
So it's regional competency, it's regional
but she can be on it,
yeah. I think we'll take this as the last question now, and then maybe take some more offline after this, yeah?
Good morning. Still on education. Is the Erasmus project part of the EU, or is that a totally separate thing?
It's part of the EU, but I know the UK would like to continue to buy into it after we exit, if Brussels is in agreement. Yeah. Right, I think we'll leave it there for questions now, but please do stay behind if you'd like to pin any of us down. We can stay here for a bit longer. Again, thank you very much for coming. And remember, go to the original source and get yourself registered. Okay? Thank you.